And today our guest is Nathan Ott. How are you doing, Nathan?
I'm very well, Jude. You? The sun is shining, which is nice. We've got our week of summer here in the UK, so I'm enjoying it. Thank you. Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping it lasts a little bit more than a week.
Yeah.
Now,
And maybe I should ask how you are as well, I suppose. I'm trying to learn that. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm excited actually because we've had all this time chatting, but
Yeah.
you've never come onto the platform. So
I
it'd be kind
haven't.
of cool to just turn the tables a little bit rather than you constantly asking me questions. So I'm kind of keen to do that. And one of the first things I noticed the other day that you were speaking in fluid Spanish, I think.
Yeah.
So do you speak Spanish, English, and anything else, or what's going on there?
Yeah. I've always been fascinated by languages. It pretty come from something now people who listening in the UK will know I've got quite an East End accent, and I think back in the 80s and 90s, it was very it was very de rigueur to go to the southern Spain, which is what my family did. Um,
Right.
and we spent a long time out there, and then all the friends were Spanish, and I couldn't speak it. So I asked my parents, said, "Look, can I learn Spanish?" And so I did a Thursday evening class, did my GCSE outside of school. Went through to then do University of Business and Spanish. Then I met my wife, who's Spanish. She's Galician, and that was quite interesting. Anyway, well, if people are interested about learning languages, but I spent about 8 or 9 years learning the language. And she's from a place called Galicia, northwest of Spain, and no one speaks a lick of English there. It's not like Brits would understand Spanish. It's not particularly hot. It's very green, and no one speaks any English. And I woke up the third day, I remember it vividly. The third day, a chip flicked and I started to talk to myself in Spanish, which
Wow.
historically I did French and German. I did them to quite a senior, like, good level, but I was still working, like, translating it in my
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
Whereas Spanish is something changed in my head, and yeah, just it comes out in Spanish, thinking Spanish. I would say I'm fluent, not quite bilingual. So there you are. Be careful if you ask me a question, you're going to get a long answer, I'd imagine.
That's all right. But that's quite interesting because it does show that if you immerse yourself in something
Yeah,
and you have a need,
yeah,
you will jump to it. And a bit like I would discuss later about the proclivities, isn't it? In that if you're forced into a different language,
yeah.
you will be able to swim because you have no choice. So I'm
Yeah,
keen
it was really
to,
strange because you went to university and it's in Alicante in Spain, but everyone was, Italian, French, Swiss, Swedish, whatever, or American, and so the common language was English. Although you were there in Spain for 8, 9 months as a year abroad, you're not really learning the language. It's all English as the common denominator. But yeah, as soon as you went then into, it was there, of course, but then yeah, when you almost have the upper hand because they can't speak any English, obviously other than my wife and her family, but no, everyone else can. Yeah, it just happened. It was a I've never spoken about it before, but yeah, it was a very sort of one of those moments you sort of wake up and you're talking to yourself in Spanish. It's weird. It was weird. Yeah,
that
weird. But
sounds
yeah, it stuck. It stuck. And so yeah, I can't lose. I've lost French. I've lost German, but Spanish is there. It doesn't go away. Yeah.
cool. So
Yeah.
Nathan, tell us a little bit more about you.
How long have you got? So,
All right, actually, it's a
I mean,
good point. So let's be a bit more specific. So tell us about what your role is for the
yeah,
GC Index and anything else around
yeah.
that.
So, my role today is chief polisher at the GC Index, and for those that are new to the GC Index, which we'll talk about, the GC Index is a language and a framework that measures how people are energized at work, how they're energized to do certain activities, certain types of work. We have a young people index for 13 to 18-year-olds, which measures and gives people a basis of how kids are energized to learn or at school in certain situations. I call myself chief polisher. That's because I don't see myself as traditional CEO, and we can come on to that, I suppose, about authenticity. But I didn't create it, if you like, in a sense of like, oh, there's this thing we're going to call it bump. It's the GC index. It was a journey, and we can talk about that journey. But it was about 4 years of research, and then you sort of launch in 2017, and then through partners like yourselves and GCLs like yourselves and their clients, it's just continuously evolved. So whilst we have the idea and we constantly create it, it's always been a journey through input through everyone else. And we, as you'll know, we're constantly learning, and it's a wonderful journey. So I call myself Chief Polisher. I'm the vision of this GC Index thing, community, movement, whatever we want to call it. And it's wonderful, really. Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to, we've all created something quite amazing together. So yeah, that's my job.
Cool. And succinctly, how would you describe the GC Index? Because I've noticed you've got your proclivities behind you. So how would you succinctly explain that?
Yeah, I think the simplest way, it's not a measure of, it's a measurement. So people take 59 questions as a survey, and but it doesn't measure what we've been accustomed to in terms of personality. It's not a personality measurement. We're not going to be able to tell if people are nice people or not. It's not how we work, and it's not a measure of skills or competence. We're not going to be able to tell you if you're any good at anything, really. But what we do is it's a measure of how people are energized. We call them proclivities. Yeah, so a proclivity to make an impact to a role, team, or organization. That's what it's measuring energy. And in simplistic terms, there's going to be some work, Jude, that you love and someone else might hate. And then there's other work that they might love and you might hate. You know, it takes more energy than it gives and vice versa. We can measure that. And we measure that, and that then enables us to make some really profound decisions around individual development, team development, organizational development. Simply 5 proclivities. So there are only 5 things to learn. If people think of ideas, tasks, and people, so ideas, we've got a game changer and strategist. So the game changer is much more around possibilities, doing things radically different. The strategist is ideas, but in a much more linear way. They like to make sense of the world. Yeah. Task focused. We have an implementer and a polisher. Implementer, stop thinking, stop talking, just get on with it, do it. Polisher, much more obsessive. If a job's worth doing, it's worth doing properly. And then the playmaker is about people, but in a way that isn't about personality, learned behaviors, emotional intelligence, socially skilled. It's a fundamental belief system that if you get the relationships right, everything else will follow. So yeah, it's that ideas, tasks, and people, and we measure that, and we measure that at an individual level, we measure it at a team level, and then we measure it at an organizational level. So was that succinct enough? I'm not sure. It is.
I always feel a bit guilty, but as you said, I should make sure it's succinct because you will talk a lot. But
I do. Yeah.
what I love about it, so as you know, I'm an ex-head of HR, so I've been drenched in all these kind of things. So when I first came across it, I was really skeptical. I was like, oh, here's another thing, here's another coloured thing.
Yeah.
And then when
do you know where the colours come from? Sorry, I've jumped in. Do you know where it comes from?
No.
We should see our model. So if anyone's old enough, well, I presume we are. Yeah, remember the game Simple Simon? Do you remember that?
Gosh, is that where it's from?
That's where it's from. That's where. So if you look at the model, everyone goes, "Oh, it's Google or it's copying insights." Nope, it's come from that Simple Simon game. It's just a bit twisted. That's all.
Oh, I like that actually. That's quite funny. Yeah. But yeah, so I thought, oh, this is just going to be something. It's not going to be particularly normed. It's bound to be American. So how is it going to be in the British? It's not going to be stable. So I was really surprised to see how stable it was, how so much psychology and testing had gone in the background, and how that you can make predictions, but it does require interpretations. So one of the things I've always hated when I was looking at psychometric tests, which I know this isn't, was that things like, oh, because you've got this profile, this is who you are. That really, from a Maverick perspective, that really bothered me, because how can you predetermine that? So I like this because it's about your energy for impact. I really like this because when I've worked with executive teams and senior leadership teams, there is so much power in the collective impact of that team. And for them to know their collective impact, they can make real business decisions and real changes that once you've put it into something, integrated it with something, the power is exponential. That's the bit I love the most. It's great to know from a personal perspective, I'm this or I can do that. But a team, wow, what a difference. What's your view on the team aspect?
Yeah, well, you've hit the nail on the head, actually, because what the GC Index is built upon is like a high level business cycle, really. You know, it's mapped onto a business cycle. So yeah, businesses, teams need to do things differently, original ideas. We call that game changer, but it's all very well having wonderful and original ideas. If you don't make sense of them, then no one's going to take them seriously. And that's why we call that bit the strategist. You know, that's the difference between that. And you might have a lovely plan as a team and lovely goals and all this stuff, but if you don't get on and do something with it, implementer, it remains a lovely plan. Things we need to improve. We need to make things better, build upon things, innovate. We call that polisher. And then, of course, we need to make sure we're getting the best out of everyone, stakeholders, our staff, whatever it might be. And that's the playmaker bit. So this is a cycle that teams, businesses are going through every single day. And what it enables teams to do is for them to firstly understand, what does this team need to achieve? And what do we need to do? And what sort of activities do we need? Do we need to do things radically differently, make sense of stuff, align stakeholders, deliver these results, make this stuff better, whatever it is? Then once you're able to frame what the team needs to do, which is devoid of people, actually, then of course you have the GC Index data that gives the team and individual data to help us make decisions. Who's best for that? What project team do we need for this? Where is this team energy going to help them? Where is it going to hinder them from achieving what we need? And I think that's the big shift comparative to a personality instrument or a behaviors instrument. I'm not saying they're not useful. They are, yes, but in terms of aligning a team to what that team objective is, the end game, that's where the GC Index has the power for the team, and it gives them a depersonalized framework to do that.
I've always seen it as a catalyst, that thing that you light a spark and it moves. And I think what's interesting is that it's agnostic. That's what I say to my clients. It's agnostic to function. So, the great strategist might be sitting in ops or might be sitting in HR, for example, and when you know where the highs and the lows are, that you can help support. I mean, I've worked with an organization where somebody had a 10 in the Playmaker, and it's like, right, when this person's overworked, how will they likely to respond? And the exec team could say, they're like this, and then the CEO sort of went, and that's how they're acting now. And that prompted the team to go, what can we do for you? Because we know you're going to constantly keep taking on work. So it came less of a blame, like this person has issues with letting go, to collectively, what should we do to support?
Yeah, it's exactly that. I mean, it's exactly that. I mean, people know I love football. I mean, I always say, I joke around and say I'm not intelligent enough to understand cricket or rugby, but it's a simple sport, right? But it's a little bit like, we've got a team, and we've got a football team, but we've got no strikers. We don't have any strikers, but we've got a game tomorrow. So how is the team going to work to score goals? We've got to score goals. We've got, but we haven't got. It's the same with the GC Index. If we have a deficit in this area, well, how can the team come together to either fill that void? Do you know what I mean? Or how we can support someone in that area? And that's what we've always like. And I like your point around sort of the sort of stigmas we place on people. I mean, a great example will be in our world. A lot of people say, "Oh, finance." Or they're going to be all implementer polishers, aren't they? That's finance. And that's a nonsense. That's an absolute nonsense, right? Because if you look at our data, okay, there might be a small spike of implementer polishers in finance functions, but we see a lot of game changer strategists, people in finance. And there's a lovely story. One of the early stories is a guy called Patrick Butcher. He was then the CFO of Network Rail. And he's a big, in our world, game changer strategist polisher. And it's in the Times a while ago. You can see it. But if anyone's ever been to Waterloo Station and they see there's a balcony that goes around Waterloo Station, that's because of Patrick. And the reason being was that when he looked at the numbers when Waterloo Station was being redeveloped, the rental incomes didn't work out. The finances didn't work out. So he went down there, put a hard hat on, which is a finance person, and said, I had a look around and said, can we get a balcony around there? And the architect went, yeah, probably can get a balcony. Why? Because then I can get more shops and rental income will match up. So it's, it's actually a creative CFO, game changer CFO, that has put the balcony around Waterloo Station, not a creative designer or architect, which is, just blows those types of stereotypes. And that's sort of one example of what we see thousands. So it's, yeah.
That's what I love. I think because once people understand the proclivities, they can go, oh, what's your opinion? And I think because people can burn out a lot, because I'm looking there at your one implementer there, and I'm thinking if I gave you loads of routine tasks, I mean, you might be able to use some of your polishing game changers to get it going for a bit. But in the end, look, I can see from your face already, you're squirming and thinking, you're kidding me, right?
I love my one, right? I love it. I mean, I think that's the other thing about this. It's low scores are strengths, not just weaknesses. High scores are potential weaknesses, not just strengths, right? And, because if you're, I don't know, if you're delivering a particular project and you've got the end of the last 2 weeks of a delivery project, the last thing you want is someone with a big game changer score in there, chucking in new ideas and mixing it all up. You want someone with a low game changer score in there, right? You know what I mean? Right? Don't get distracted, get on with it.
Yeah.
And that's the same with that one implement. I mean, it doesn't mean I don't implement. I mean, I still have to do the washing up, right? But if you understand the model, I'm doing the washing up. I'll do it for a few days. That's fine. I'll wash it as you told me to. Do the dishes, put them there like you told me to. But what will start to happen is my game changer and polisher proclivity will start kicking in, going, oh, I wonder if there's a different way of doing this washing up, or this isn't doing, and all of a sudden the dishes start piling up. Do you know what I mean? I'm not just, and then that's kind of how it works. And so you have to find anchors.
You're in your shed building this great machine to do it for you.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah. And all the time, it never happens. It's 3 years and you've got piles and piles of dishes without them being, just get an implementer to wash those bloody dishes, will you? Because he's, and that's fine, because you sort of know. And I think in your notion of teams, it's really, it's a bit of a problem, I think, with organizations, is they really push teamwork, they really push collaboration, but they measure people individually. Right. And so as soon as you're measuring people individually, you're looking at weaknesses. Right. Yeah. And it's almost like, if you're in a team sport, you're playing to strengths. And I'll carry on with football. I'm not going to teach my striker to, you did all right this season, you scored 20 goals, but you didn't save any and you're not very good in goal. You don't do that.
Yeah.
But with golfers or tennis, well, you do have to develop weaknesses because you're on your own. And I think what the G Syntax is helping us is actually systematically and scientifically properly enabling team development to be a team sport rather than a team sport with individual.
I love that, because I see this a lot with exec teams and senior leadership teams where individually they're fantastic. You've got all your experts, they know what they're doing, but then when they get together, they still act individually. Yeah. And they forget that when they're together, they are supposed to be a team that works together. So therefore, if finance is failing, we're all failing. If HR is failing, we're all failing. It's not, well, that's okay. I'm going to take, marketing is going to take this from the sales that ops can't deliver because the problem sits somewhere else.
You can understand that, though, because these leaders have worked very, very hard to get up to that, if you like, top table, for want of a better word. And and that's how they've got there, individualistically, being the best at their craft. And obviously they sometimes taking 10, 15, 20 years to get there. So they're going to be protective of that individualistic nature. What the G Syntax offers is a safe data point, a safe language where people can go, actually, that's not me. This is better. I need your help for this. And I always talk about that Mother Teresa quote, if we could get that into ballrooms, it's you can do things I cannot, I can do things you cannot, but together we can do great things. And I think the GSIN helps that. For example, and you are, a chief polisher. Now, as a CEO, we expect a certain type of individual. Yeah. And now in our world, it might be that sort of strategist, playmaker, set direction, be inclusive, make sure everyone feels good and positive. But that's not me. Yeah, that's not, I mean, it's not. I mean, let's be honest, right? It's not how I can do it. I can be non-authentic and try and do that. We see a lot of leaders that, can you make this person strategic? Well, really? I mean, I've seen a lot of game changer, polisher individuals in our world, and they've stood up and said, "I don't believe in strategy," to the horror of the team. Do you know what I mean? What do you mean, don't believe in strategy? Yeah. Whereas, rather than telling that leader to go and be strategic, go, no, you're a game changer, polisher. This is what you add value. This is what you can go and do for the team. This is where you add value. You just approve the strategy. You don't have to create it, spend time on all that draining energy being in that space. You approve it because there's a load of people here that would love to do all that strategic bit and get it all. They'd spend hours on it. They love it. We know you hate it. You still want to prove it though, because you're the leader, right? And we need to have but it's a very different way of, and you can almost see that those CEOs or leaders with the lower strategy proclivity going, oh, and relax, and they can be themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess from my perspective, I agree with that. But here's my proviso, and this might be the man. Someone can become highly skilled in an area where they have low or lowish, relatively speaking, energy to it. Now, it's for those circumstances. So, for example, if you need the CFO or the CEO to be strategic, they could have the skills for it. But they themselves, and this is how the GC Index would help, would know how to balance the need. What do they need to lean on? Yes. So do they need to, it's like for you, for example, do you need to lean on your polisher to make this, from the game changer, to make the strategy work? It's just that you wouldn't put you in strategy all the time.
Yeah.
But we might go, you know what, we need to skill you up in this area because you need to know a good strategy against a bad one, or you need to set the vision. So that's what I like about it, is that kind of nuance. And this is why I see the GC Index as not a standalone, it's a catalyst to what else is happening. Because I've had people say, can you just do this? It's like, no, not really, because it needs to be with something to be really powerful, I think. And I think, go on.
You make a fantastic point. Again, low proclivity or low energy doesn't mean you're not any good at it. As I said, I could be amazing at the washing up. Just don't leave me there for too long. Do you know what I mean? And I've got to find anchors for it. So, no, so what we are trying to get, to your point, is this notion of impact. So if impact is proclivity plus a skill set, so that's an extra data point. It's all very well saying I'm a 10 on polisher, but if I haven't got the skill set for it, what a waste of time. So it's proclivity plus a skill set. And we do bring in personality. How does my personality help or hinder me? If I'm an extroverted polisher or an introverted polisher, that means something different. So, but you could have low energy, high skill somewhere. Yeah, that's your point. But at some point, that's not going to be a sustained impact.
No, it'll burn you out. Yeah.
Burn you out. You could have low skill and high energy somewhere. That's not going to help. So what we're trying to get is that equation of high skill, high proclivity, high skill is the highest impact, is what we're trying to get to. But you also raise another interesting point, which we see. It is. I didn't know. I didn't know idea where we're going with this, right? But the point is that someone else spoke a lot about sort of borrowing energy.
Yeah.
And so if people can see behind me that big 10 polisher and game changer. So it's a lot about, people are probably getting this already. It's a verbal state of consciousness, right? But it's a lot of possibilities and relentlessly pursuing that. If you look at my Playmaker, which is a 2, I mean, I'm a lovely bloke, I like people, I love collaboration, but people start to, people don't do what I've asked them to do the first or second time. I just burn inside. It's annoying, right? And I have to if I have to move into that Playmaker space, I'll probably use that polisher game changer and go, right, I'm going to be the best, most creative Playmaker ever, and I move into that space, but it doesn't sustain. It'll be a week, 2, 3 weeks, and eventually my natural default of energy will, So
can I be cheeky, Nathan? Let me be cheeky with you.
Always.
So, I've known you now, so since 2018, I've been apprentice. And I would say, this is from my HR perspective, right? So I'm being a bit cheeky, that your skills around playmaking is way higher now than it used to be. 2018, you was I remember raising an eyebrow and going, interesting. Whereas but when I see how it works, if you think about it as GC Index, the company, you've got more people involved right now.
Yeah.
So the proclivity energy spread a lot further. So you don't have to be writing that too anymore. Yeah. So whenever you come together, like in the training sessions, or when I see you having a chat or whatever, is that you can move that energy because you're not required to be in it all the time like you were in 2018.
Yes. Yeah, completely agree. And we've got other people around that can do that, in our world, that do that playmaking bit. I position it, particularly these things, is like, let's look at the possibilities, game changer, how can we make things better, polisher. But no, the team won't mind me saying this, it happens quite a lot. It's you
have more patience.
Well, they might mind me saying it, might have to cut it out. But the point is that, sometimes I'll be working in sort of individually with people, because the team's quite not massive, but it's still sort of 15, 16. You can't sort of get everyone to have this sort of consensus. And then sometimes someone will go to me, we'll make a new decision. Shall we ask the opinion of the rest of the team before we launch this? And I'll be like, nope, can't think of anything worse. I don't care. We're just getting this out, right? Okay. Now, sometimes that's right because it's the right thing to do, and actually the decision-making process will slow that down. And of course, sometimes it's wrong because I haven't got it right. I haven't got all the answers. And I find myself going back to asking the team when it wasn't quite the right thing to do anyway. But that's my natural view, is to go, nah, I haven't got the energy to ask everyone. But to your point, I've had to learn through the GC Index. I've had to try and learn, particularly around the polisher and the game changer bit, is patience. It's biting your tongue. It's because we've moved from, and this is quite interesting if you've got teams listening to this. So we've moved from this, back in 2018, we're a very different business. It was all new and let's try stuff. And we're quite small, quite agile, but we are moving more over to that strategist implementer bit. We've got to implement and scale. And to be honest, I've struggled with that. And I've been quite open about that. It feels like been implementing for 3 or 4 years, particularly around the platform. And I know that might mean anything to anyone, with a big technology platform. I think now, though, the last 6 months, now we've got the platform, I'm back into that world of possibilities, and I feel better about that. But yeah, last 2 years have been quite tough. It's been a strategist implementer world, which, can't lie, was draining,
Yeah. And you were a lot quieter too as well. So, you know, it's something that I noticed, obviously, from the HR perspective. You can see that in the last couple of years, you were a lot in the public. I don't know about inside the company, but public facing, you were a lot quieter. And you've come out, like, the platform's now, it's not perfect, but it's pretty good. So now you can be like, oh, we can do this and we can do that. And
exactly
now we
that.
can see you being really inspiring, because that game-changing polisher is like, get really excited. And because this is like, sounds a bit cheeky now, sort of telling you your own game, but
please don't apologize for being cheeky. We need to be cheeky. Be cheeky as you like.
But because you've spent all that time with the you're very open in terms of the learning, is that you will ask strategic questions even though you're energized to it. And it allows your game changer to happen.
Yes.
Because before, in the past, you'd have these ideas and people would be like, what is he talking about? Whereas you recognize that, so you now sort of have your bigger idea, and as you're starting to talk about it, you start talking it from a strategic implementation point of view, so those people can grab it and go, now we know what we need to do, and then you're less frustrated. That's what I can see is the difference over the last few years.
100%. And obviously people like Simon coming in as a strategist. Now, a lot of people thought Simon was very sort of like cold and, like this sort of strategist implementer stuff, but we needed that as we scaled, right? And we're now finding that nice, healthy balance. But yeah, it's definitely had to learn that I don't always say what's in your head, Nathan, that sort of stuff. You know what I mean? But you remember this. So how long? So a very basic thing about putting 3 different, or two pages on a report of the 20 impact styles. You know that. I mean, I'm like, can we just not get this out?
Because I remember saying it for years ago. Why
like,
isn't there 20? Because 20 is what it is. And everyone's going, no, because we haven't done it that way before, which I found really frustrating. Like, but this is a better way.
Yeah. But we're trying to get it out and try and implement. I'm like, can we please? It's so frustrating. But we have to implement loads of other stuff before doing this cool stuff. So yeah, particularly the last sort of, I'd say up till the end of last year, really, it was very implementary. Now it's exciting again. Now
you can see it, and the company appears to be much more energized because you're super excited all the time, and it's really fun. I think I think what's interesting for me, I was really skeptical, right? Because whenever I do any of these kind of tests, being the maverick, I always have extreme responses. I'm all like, don't agree, absolutely don't agree, absolutely agree. It's very rare for me to have anywhere in the middle. I'm like, yes, no, very kind of in my thinking. So I was like, what's this going to come out with? And then my proclivities was completely rounded. So I had everything was a 7 and a 1 in a 6. And I was like, oh, what does this mean? And I remember Dr. John coming up and saying, we've not had this before, so I need to actually talk to you to make sure that what I've said is right. So I remember having a 2-hour conversation where he was kind of like working it out with me to make sure that it made sense, because I'd broken the system, as it were. Which as a maverick, I loved that. The fact that there was nobody else like me at that point. I was like, hey. But what was interesting with that and understanding it was my own way of working is that I kind of see the problem and the solution at the same time. So people are talking, I'm like, oh, the problem is this, and this is what needs to go forward. And recognizing that my proclivities are so balanced, because that makes sense, because I'm sitting there going, let me check the idea, let me strategy.
Yeah.
And also
how does it practically work? How can you make it better?
Yeah.
You involved,
and I always hold people until that had been assessed before they could move on. And now I understand how annoying that. So now I know how to say it in a way that's not annoying. But people would get annoyed because either I jumped ahead, I know the solution now, let's just move to that point, and people didn't have a chance to say their thing, or people would be excited. So maybe like you, Viten, you want to go polish, and I'd be like, wait, we haven't sorted this, wait. But now I know, knowing my own profile, I know how to talk to people in a way that energizes them without me just going, let me just tell you what it is, because I've looked at everything.
And was that like I'm going to throw it back to you. I know it's your podcast, right? But I'm just going to ask back to you now. You mentioned your profile. But was that like, did that make sense of your life a lot more for you as well, though, in terms of how you operated throughout life? Or, I mean, because we see that quite a lot with the GC. I mean, certainly for me, I mean, it was a revelation. I mean, I still refuse my profile. I don't think it's right, but, everyone else. I've done it 5 times. I've done it 5 times and I can't change it, so it must be right. But it was it because did that make sense to you about being able to move around that really quickly and sometimes losing people, or sometimes not, waiting for people to catch up? Because I've got another, because I've got an example of another person that had a very similar to profile back in the day, and we interviewed them as well, and it was extraordinary to watch. So did it make sense? Have you always been like that?
Yeah, and I just thought, because you don't know, right? So I just thought everybody was like that. I couldn't so I guess knowing the profile lessened my frustration, because it would annoy me that somebody wanted to move forward without actually spending the time to sort strategy out and making sure the idea was right. And how come they've not thought about implementing it before they've started? And it was just annoying. And like the whole maverick, the maverick leadership is an adaptive leadership style that looks at even in the strategic working it out, you're going through, and at the time I didn't even know about this, but you're going through all those proclivities before you actually implement a thing. So you're dummy running it and testing it before it started. And now I know what proclivities are. That makes perfect sense. But that's what I teach to people, that ability to dummy test everything before they implement it. So it's not necessary. If you know it's not going to work in your simulation, you can redo the simulation before you spend the money, the time, and the effort in doing something that's wrong. And to me, that's completely natural. I don't, I understand now, but back in the day, I was like, why would people not run a simulation first? It only takes, because for me,
it'd be quick in your head though.
It's not really quick.
People. I mean, and I think that's where sort of we start looking at 6s and 7s being more optimum rather than bigger scores, right? Because And I don't mean they're better sixes and sevens, because they can
No.
be a problem as well as but they are more optimal. I have got energy for this, but I don't get overly drawn into it. I can move. And I think that's with your profile, and is that sort of, if you all of a sudden got your profile and you've got this 10 on strategist that needs that clarity, before they can move on, you'll be gone, because you'll have the new idea, you'll see how it fits in, we'll know how it practically can happen. This is how we can improve it, and this is how we get everyone together. Bang, there you go. But they'll still be stuck in that. What, why, how? So how does this fit in? Do you know what I mean? And I remember seeing someone with your type of profile. This is back in the early when we saw these, and we call them sixes and sevens. That's obviously the downside. You could be at sixes and sevens, if you don't manage it properly. And it was a partner, a bunch of partners. It was a big four. I won't mention which one it was. And at a meeting, there's about 8 of them, 7 men and 1 woman. The woman had the similar profile to you. And I just watched her in action, and it was like she just ran rings around it. She literally knew possibility idea. This is how it all fits in. This is what we're going to go and do. This is how it's going to be better over time. And I've already spoken to these people about it. And you could just watch the other partners who must have been more strategist implementers going, what, almost what, how, what? She'd lost them. She'd done them. And I think that becomes. I was like, wow. If you can manage that 6 and 7 profile really skillfully, it's very powerful. Very powerful.
Yeah, and I think I see talking about it as language, me as being the only way I can be multi-language.
Yeah.
Because if I get like a 10 polisher, I switch polisher because I get it. I switch it. But it's not cognitive. It's subconscious.
Yeah.
It's like mirroring. I'm not necessarily aware of it. And I think that probably helps with the alignment piece, because for me, I just switch without, I guess because it's all natural proclivities, it's not disingenuous, because it's all there. And I think, again, for me, like the maverickness, the maverick leadership part is what keeps it control. So for me, just thinking about what you're saying compared to the other person, it's like a thinking style. So I'll think all of this, like you said, in a very fast, very rapid way.
Yeah.
But I will communicate it in a much different way based on who's in front.
Yeah.
So it becomes language thinking. So I'm super fast on the thinking and working it out. But I might not tell you what the solution is. Maybe we might coach it or mentor it, or maybe I'll just be quiet because you need to do this and that. And I might just influence and nudge. And I think that's what you're saying. It's about understanding what to do with those
in the right time, because it's you don't want to get stuck in a polishery conversation with me, and we've gone too far. You've got to know when to flip back up to that strategist, or flick up to the no, we've got to get something done now, implementer, or it's that's the trick with that profile. If you clearly managed it over time, is when you have those sort of profiles that are all 6s and 7s. As again, it's hugely potential for adaptability, versatility, moving quickly. The downside can be, and we've seen a number with your profile where they're making the wrong impact at the wrong time, and they're all over the place. Do you know what I mean? And that's the flip side to it. It's a bit like, again, football. I can play a bit of striker, a bit of defence, a bit of midfield. Are you making the right impact at the right time, or are you running around the pitch being ineffective? It's that's the trade-off, and you've obviously got the skills and stuff to be able to manage that to great effect. And probably when we get someone with that profile again, I might just give them your number and tell them how to do it.
Thank you very much. You know what, I think talking to you now, making me think about it being environmental. So I think that whilst my proclivities have probably stayed the same, where I lead is quite different. And I think the role that I'm doing now in this business and with clients is that I tend to lead with strategist. So I'm like, what's the point? Where are we going? What are we doing? And then I will go game changer.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, how do you want to implement it? What will success look like? Okay, who needs to be involved? But even though I could start at any point, I think my role has pushed me into strategist. Whereas I think if I was back in my days of head of HR in some organisations, I would have probably led with the Playmaker.
Yeah.
Because that's the role I was in. I would be probably Playmaker strategist leaning. Yeah. I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's all context driven, right? And certainly when we look at teams, you don't have to go around the game changer strategy, even apologies. You could start anywhere.
Yeah.
You might go, right, and we do a lot of meetings. It's like you actually base your meetings on the GC Index language. Is this an implementer meeting? Is this a polisher meeting? Is it, do we have to get stuff done? Right. This is just about implementing then. How are you going to contribute to this? Or, actually, or we can go round the cycle. What stuff do we need to do differently? What stuff needs to make sense? What stuff do we have to get done, improve, and make what people aspect? So, and that's the frame of meetings. We use it on teams. So the follow-on, typically from a team workshop, the first thing they do is, right, we're going to manage our meetings using this framework, because then we understand how that works.
You know what that made me think of? De Bono's hats.
Yeah, but that's more of a thinking style. You just rather than linking it exactly to what needs to be done, though. It's very hard to go. It's very hard to go. We need to yellow. This stage of the project is yellow, and this it's very difficult, Whereas
what I was thinking was more the concept of we're here for a particular purpose. So, because like the De Bono's, it's kind of like we're here for, well, as it was taught, we're here for a particular purpose, so we're going to wear this hat. And that's exactly what you're saying in terms of the meetings, isn't it? This is a meeting for ideas, so let's just stick in game changer.
But I think it's moving on to, what does the project need? What does the business need? What does the meeting need? So, and that's why you'll know it links the language links very nicely with projects and processes and initiatives, because do we need to implement this? Do we need to polish this? Do we need to strategize? Do we need to game change this? It runs across processes. Okay. And it's the same with meetings. It's exactly the same. And I think that's been the big difference, where the GC Index sort of comes on its own. But as you say, it's just one data point. It's just a data point. It's not it's not the only data point.
What would you? Well, I'm just thinking actually, because what would you do if there's a team and they've had their collective impact and they don't like it? So they've, I don't know. So you've done a team and you give them a snapshot and you've said, this is what your proclivities are, and they've gone, that's not us. How would you respond to that?
Well, the first thing I'd say is the GC Index is only telling you what you told it. So why did you tell it that? So it's not much more complicated than that. So we get a number of people that, and I quote this one quite a lot, because it's quite a new language, and the GC isn't benign, so it does something, and that's the strength and the potential curse, because it does shine up a mirror quite quickly. But there's no such thing as a right profile or a wrong profile, right? There's no such thing as the perfect football team. Otherwise one team would win all the time. There's no such thing as a perfect, I don't know, theatre product. There's no such thing as like perfect. This doesn't exist. And what we used the GC Index for, but this is your team profile. Now, bearing in mind they've all had an individual profile as well, right? Yeah. And they've probably had a one-to-one review. Mm-hmm. And they've probably gone, yeah, that's me, right? Okay. And because the face validity is so high, but it's new data, but you just say, how does this work for us? How does it work against us, right? Because that's how we would use that data. Maybe one individual, and this is why it's quite new data, and I talk about this individual quite a lot. I'm not going to name him. I'll cut down roughly half the population, but showed him in a team workshop, showed him his data for the first time. We very rarely do that. They must see their profile before they go into a team workshop. Anyway, and he said, that's not me. So what do you mean it's not you? He said, no, it's not me. I'm a game changer. Oh no, okay, all right then. Why? Because I'm not. He goes, I'm not a strategist implementer. I'm a game changer. So okay, tell me why. And he said, I bring order to chaos. And I went, yeah, because you're a strategist implementer. If you were a game changer, you'd be the chaos, right? But it's this notion of not being what they want, and a lot of pushback on polisher as well.
It's the name. It's the name. People don't like the idea of polisher as the name, isn't it?
But and it's quite interesting actually, because particularly with polishers, I don't know why we're talking about polishers, but funny that. But the point, everyone sort of, it's funny. We either get people who want everyone to be polishers. So we have teams that go, everyone's got to be a polisher. It's all about standards, making things better, improving, innovating. And then you get the others that go, oh, I don't want to be a polisher. And it's sort of, they a lot of people, when they first get that, oh, it's not me, I'm not a polisher, and it's quite a big score. Are you sure? Yeah, it's not me. And they don't like the word perfection often. Yeah. Now, a lot of people call themselves perfectionists and have low polisher scores because actually real polishers don't really often believe in perfection because it's a myth. But they use things like, I like to optimize things. Okay, fine. Or I like to. And so we see that quite a lot. And if you sort of start thinking about some of the underlying drivers, it shines a hat on the. We value people for what they do, not what they intend. So we often see now it could be in your instance that your clients might value for your implementer. They might be valuing you for Jude always gets, I'm not saying they do, but Jude always gets stuff done. She implements well, but they might not see the game changer or the playmaker or the strategy in your profile because they don't see it because they value you for your implementing. And it was just today I had one of our GCologists that said, "Oh, do you mind doing this profile review for me?" It's a very senior individual. And I said, "Yeah, I don't mind doing it with you." And he said, "I think it's wrong." I went, "Oh, okay, fine. I think they're more game changer strategists. And I think the profile's wrong." And I'm like, "Well, it's not wrong. Yeah. I mean, I'm not here to tell him it's right, but he's answered it in a certain way." And and I asked the individual through what he thought he would be. He goes, "I'm definitely an implementer, polisher, yeah, playmaker, and a bit of strategist, not the game changer." And then sort of looked to the GCology when you went, "All right, wow." It wasn't what he had seen the individual, but the individual knew what they were. And I think that's where we're getting some real power. So to answer your question from about 5 minutes ago, before I whittled on, if it's not right, the face validity of the G is like high 90%. It's not measuring personality, it's proclivity. And if it isn't you, why the hell did you answer those questions in that way then?
That makes me think of a particular client where we went for, so we'd seen him, a few times doing some stuff, and then he had his GC index done. And when I looked at the profile, I was like, oh, this is a total surprise. This is not how I would envision this at all. Anyway, so I gave them the profile and said, what do you think of that? And they said, that makes sense. So that surprised me even more. I was like, okay, how does that make sense? And what it was, they said, I took this on day one of my new job where we saw them. This is exactly how I was in my old job. And I said, did you hate your old job? I absolutely hated my old job. In fact, my new job is a completely different industry and a completely different thing. Because I was like, I had him in my head as like a really high strategist, and he was a very low strategist. And he was like, everything that I did in my old job was counter to what I really was about. And I was like, okay, now I feel really, it made me have more faith at that time, because I was like, yeah, I have more faith in this system because it's accurate. It's really accurate because it's not what I'm saying. He goes, if I took it now and I would be X, Y, and Z, because obviously he's doing something completely different. And he was burnt out, hated his old job. Because that's why I left. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, we're seeing that a lot. So a lot of this nonsense that personality to convince you don't change. I mean, that's just nonsense. But but I'm not going to go down that road. So we do see changes in the GCNS profile. Of course we change. I mean, you've been in HR, companies spend billions of pounds trying to get people to change. Now we're wondering they don't. Of course they change. Within the GCNS, it's extraordinarily stable as an instrument, test, retest, reliability, that sort of stuff. But we know that people will change, and it's not going to change because you've had 10 cups of coffee tomorrow or something like that. But over periods of time, it will change. And we do obviously measure, and you'll know about latent profiles where we do track that loss of energy, and that can be in transition, in jobs where people aren't being fully motivated for whatever reason, and we track that and we pick that up. And of course, we give them a chance to take it again for free after a period of time, to do that. One interesting, I use this example quite a lot, but never publicly. So it might be something as a snippet, because a lot of people, a lot of senior leaders feel they get exposed with the GC index when they get a low strategist score, because that's how they've been conditioned. You need to be strategic. Go and do an MBA, be strategic. And it's a bit of a nonsense with the GC index, not how it works. So one of my favorite examples, and I do say this quite a lot, but is a senior Big Four, Deloitte, we'll mention them, right? A senior Deloitte partner, pretty senior. And we've done their profile, well, very senior, and we've done their profile, and it's a 2 on strategist. So for those listening, it's between 1 and 10 is what you get on each proclivity. So 2 on strategist, an 8 on implementer, and then 2s and 3s elsewhere. So you think, So I asked the question, how do you become a senior successful Deloitte partner with a 2 on strategist? And he said, it makes perfect sense to me, a bit like your person. I said, why? He said, I'm a mergers and acquisitions transactions partner. I have 6 weeks to go and transact. Basically, it's what I have. I use my strategist, normally about half a day. I'm very skilled at it. I've been around the block. I know what I need. And after that half a day, bang, we transact. And it's not new ideas, not making it perfect. Don't worry too much about the people. We've got to execute. If I put one of my other senior partners in there, had a 7, 8, 9, 10 on strategist, and wanted to spend a few days, a week, 2 weeks, wondering and exploring about how the client would throw them out. Yeah. And so that's where like a low score can be a strength dependent on the context.
Yeah, exactly. And again, as I say, like Maverick, leadership is a contextualized system.
Yes.
It's all about the context. So it's not like a leadership style where if you do these things, then you can make that person do that. To me, that sounds like manipulation, not influence. And it's all about influencing people. So therefore, you're talking about alignment and persuasion. And that's the difference, is that you're presented with something and you have to stop and look at the context. Because when you started talking, my first thought was, what's his role? What does he do?
Yeah, exactly that.
Because it's all about the context. So I absolutely love that. So
you mentioned that influence thing. So another one is that people, often strategist implementers, get really upset because they get a low Playmaker score.
Yes.
Right. And they think they're being really like that learned behavior stuff around. All they're trying to do is align people to their vision and get them to do stuff. It doesn't mean they're not nice people. That's not how that works. Right. But, often if you do have a strategist implementer and they're asking you for your opinion, they're probably not interested in your opinion. They're probably asking if you agree with them. So watch out for that. That's all. Yeah.
That's true. It's like, people will say, Playmaker is the funny one, isn't it? Because people will say, well, I'm good with people. And my response is, if there's a problem, what's the first thing you do to solve it? And then I'll either go to, I will just see what needs to be implemented. I'll work out strategy. Okay. Yeah. I said, well, a 10 people person will be like, who can I bring together and how all the functions are working?
Yeah.
So once people understand, I think what it is, and it's common with a lot of systems, is that people try to apply lay terms to the words without recognizing what it means within the system that it is.
Yeah.
So they go, implementer. Oh, well, I implement things all the time. Yes, but that's not what it's about. It's not because the word says implementer that you're a great implementer. It means this. So I think it's more nuanced.
Yeah. I mean, as someone said, the GC is very, very, at the highest level, it's really quite simple. Just 5 things to learn. But as a lot of people say, a lot of people get knocked off balance because they go, oh, it's really simple. And then they realize actually it's got more and more and more depth and sophistication to it.
Yeah. It's another reason why I like it. I don't know what it is. You can't kill me with data. So I love the fact that it is deep, right? Because my view is, if you miss the extended learning that you guys provide, you'll miss the truth of it. Do you know what I mean? If you can't be my view, you can't be accredited and then you don't do any more learning. It's a bit like doing a degree in advanced maths and then never doing maths and then wondering why you can't work out a complex problem 3 years later. You have to continually polish. You have to continue.
Well, and that's how, I mean, again, quite frankly, well, I don't know who this is going to. That's probably one of our biggest challenges at the moment, is making sure that people do keep being educated about what we're doing. Because we do move really quickly. I mean, you've been with us for since 2018. It's night and day. In 6 years, even in 2 years, it's night and day. In a year, it's night and day. There's things we've been doing now that we weren't doing at the beginning of the year. So we, as an organisation, have a big learning curve, and I also have to bite my tongue and curb my enthusiasm because I can see what we're doing, and how we're doing it, but people still haven't caught up in the early stuff. It's a bit like these car manufacturers, that they know what the car looks like in 10 years' time. you know, we probably can't handle it yet, you know, but they know, and so we have to keep making sure that people keep up to speed and do the learning as best we can. And if we're ever doing it wrong, if we're not doing it well enough, well, I would say this, wouldn't I? Just come and talk to us, you know, and tell us. You know, we love being told by the partners and GCologists like yourself. You're always moving us on. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think it's the Maverick way, right? So Mavericks is all about revolution, but a socialized Maverick is about being revolutionary, but showing the evolution for others so they can evolve at the right stage. I think it'd be really good to end here, Nathan, with you telling me why a senior exec team should be concerned about the collective impact. Why should they get it assessed?
Well, firstly, right, I'm not quite sure how you're going to deliver your objectives without knowing how your team individually and collectively are energized to make that impact. It's a bit like going on a football team. I've got a bunch of people that can kick and run skills. They've kicked and run before, experience, and they're all nice people, personality. But I don't know what positions they're going to play in, right? To win the game. That's basically what you're saying. Yeah. So when they get on the pitch, where are they energized to play on the pitch? You don't know that. Now you've got a piece of data and a language which is accessible. It's readily affordable to do that, and it gives you insight straight away to start at the beginning of the movie rather than the middle of the movie, right? I mean, and it's that quick. I'll give you an example. Right, well, I always talk about examples, right? Here we have a senior executive team. They're quite big, they're extended. It's about 18 of them, all right, in a company, and they've got a 3-day strategy day to talk about their big initiatives, all right, strategy. They're getting an MBB firm in, top tier strategy firm. Let's leave it at that. But MBB, if you know what they are, and the people inside have gone, we've all done the GC index, so we the interview. So, shall we use it as part of the team? Day? No. We've got reassuringly expensive top-tier strategy firm, MBB firm, coming in to tell us how to do it. Fine. Okay. Anyway, so they had their 3 days, and they've got their capture of their all of the outputs of what they're going to do for their initiatives. And let's take one of them. It's a cultural change, really important. And I said, give me like the synopsis of what you've come up with. So they gave me the synopsis, and we use our tool GC Translate. We translated it, and GC Translate picks up words assigned to the GCN's proclivity, so you get a shape of what they're trying to achieve. So we took this cultural statement, and it was very polisher, game changer, playmaker heavy. So it is free possibilities, working with everyone, improving. That's the culture statement that come up in 3 days, very expensive. So I said, well, give me the team that you've chosen to do this then. Yeah, the leadership team. It's about 8 of them. And we profiled. And their team was 85%, 86%. Their height was implementer. So they've chosen, they've got this objective. This is a business objective. It's very polished, a game changer. And they've chosen a team. All they want to do is get stuff done, right? And we just showed those 2 visuals and to the exec, and they went, I can't swear, can I? Blimey, right? Okay, let's go back up. Now we want to use the GC index for our team selection moving forwards. Now, so what? It's that simple, right? It's that simple. You've got to align. There's no way of aligning your objectives. What you need to do. What's the team you chose to do it? What decisions can we make to make it better and make it more effective? So yeah, an example. Is that helpful? I don't know.
That is helpful, because if they are stuck in a situation like that, and they're aware of that, and they're not changing obviously the team, then now you know what strategies need to put in place to make it possible. Yes. So rather than actually, this is why sort of the strategist game changer coming out, rather than seeing it actually not working down the line 6 months later and you've spent a lot of money, you can go, actually, to make sure it's going to work, we're going to make sure they need to know X, Y, Z, or develop in this way.
Yeah,
this has been fantastic, Nathan.
Thank you, Jude.
Can I tempt you to come back another time to talk more?
Of course, yeah. I can't guarantee, as like this, it's not scripted. It's the way it is. And I want to thank you very much for your continued support and constantly pushing us. And it's exciting about where we're going to get to. And we've, as I say, we've created this community with really minimal marketing and stuff. It's all been through word of mouth and stuff, and partners and clients pushing us on. So, but thank you for your role in that, and long may it continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nathan.